Let's be real. When Hollywood imagines tomorrow, it doesn't look great. The dominant cultural exports of our time, shaped by the global capitalist order, are obsessed with a single, terrifying idea. The end is near. Think about the biggest stories we consume. They are almost always tales of dystopia, collapse, and endless crisis. We tune in week after week, or maybe binge-watch over a weekend, stories that paint a future devoid of hope, where humanity is hanging on by a thread. This isn't just a niche genre anymore. It's the mainstream. It's the air we breathe, the entertainment we crave. It's a vision of tomorrow filled with suffocating control, environmental ruin, and the complete breakdown of society as we know it. The examples are everywhere, and honestly, they are relentless. George Orwell gave us the ultimate blueprint for a surveillance state where Big Brother is always watching and truth itself is a political weapon. Fast forward to today, and Charlie Brooker takes that anxiety and puts it on steroids, showing us how our beloved technology, our phones, our social media, our entire digital lives can become instruments of our own oppression. Each episode is a mini-apocalypse, a warning that our drive for convenience and connection is leading us down a very dark path. These aren't just stories, they are reflections of a deep-seated fear that the systems we rely on are fundamentally broken and ready to turn against us at any moment. Then you have the full-blown, post-apocalyptic nightmares. Other popular franchises present a future scorched by resource wars, where civilization has crumbled into a brutal, dusty wasteland and survival is a daily violent struggle. Ridley Scott's world shows a different kind of decay, a rain-soaked, neon-drenched dystopia where corporate power has run amok. Nature is all but extinct, and the very definition of humanity is blurred. These narratives, consumed by millions, are powerful. They don't just entertain, they normalize the idea of collapse. They teach us to expect disaster, to see a bleak future not as a possibility, but as an inevitability. It's a cultural feedback loop of despair. This constant stream of grim prophecies serves a purpose, whether intentional or not. It fosters a sense of helplessness, a feeling that the immense problems facing our world are simply too big to solve. If the future is already written as a blockbuster disaster movie, why bother trying to change the script? This culture of pessimism can lead to political apathy and a quiet acceptance of the status quo, no matter how unsustainable it may be. It's a vision that suggests the only thing to do is to grab your popcorn, watch the world burn, and hope you're one of the lucky survivors. But this is not the only story we can tell ourselves about what lies ahead for humanity. What's fascinating and deeply ironic is that these stories are essentially the global capitalist order writing its own obituary. These dark fantasies are not random, they are direct extrapolations of the system's own internal logic. The anxieties about unchecked corporate power that comes from a world where a handful of tech companies have more influence than many nations. The surveillance state that is born from the reality of surveillance capitalism, where our every click, purchase and location is tracked, catalogued, and monetized. It's the system looking in the mirror and projecting its worst features into a terrifying but logical conclusion. This is more than just artistic expression. It's a subconscious admission of failure. The system seems to understand its own inherent unsustainability. The endless cycle of economic crises, the ever-widening gap between the ultra-rich and everyone else, and the looming threat of climate catastrophe are not science fiction plot points. They are real-world headlines. The cultural products of this order simply take these realities and follow them to their endpoint. The result is a future where the system has finally consumed itself, leaving behind only wreckage and ruin. It's a grand prophecy of self-destruction, broadcast on every screen for all to see. The narrative of environmental collapse is perhaps the most obvious example. Movies show the bleak landscapes of show us a world ravaged by climate change, a direct consequence of an economic model that prioritizes infinite growth on a finite planet. These aren't just cautionary tales. They are acknowledgments that the pursuit of profit at all costs has a final devastating price. By producing and popularizing these stories, the system is essentially confessing that it has no real long-term solution for the very problems it creates. It can only imagine a future where it has failed, and humanity is left to deal with the consequences. So, we are left with a culture that expects its own demise. It invests billions of dollars to create spectacular visions of its own failure, packaging it as entertainment for the masses. This creates a powerful self-fulfilling cycle of despair. We are told the future is hopeless, so we feel powerless. We feel powerless, so we don't demand change. And without a demand for change, the system continues on its destructive path, inching closer to the very dystopias it sells us as fiction. It's a brilliant, if terrifying, loop. But what if there was another way to see the future? What if there was a vision based not on inevitable collapse but on enduring hope? In stark contrast to the gloom and doom broadcast by the global capitalist order, Islam offers a profoundly hopeful and optimistic vision for the future of humanity. This isn't a vision of avoiding hardship, but one that sees beyond it. It is rooted in the core belief that truth and goodness have an inherent power to last, while falsehood and corruption are ultimately temporary and fleeting. This principle is not just a comforting thought, it is enshrined in the heart of its sacred text, the Quran. It provides a spiritual and intellectual framework for seeing the world not as a sinking ship, but as a vessel moving through stormy waters towards a safe harbor. The Quran beautifully illustrates this idea with a powerful metaphor. In one verse it says, "He sends down rain from the sky, and valleys flow according to their capacity, and the torrent carries a rising foam. As for the foam, it vanishes, cast off, but as for that which benefits the people, it remains on the earth." Quran 13:17. Think about that. All the noise, the corruption, the injustice, that is the foam. It's big, it's loud, it seems to be everywhere. But like foam on a wave, it has no substance. It's destined to disappear. What truly lasts, what remains on the earth, is that which is good, pure, and genuinely useful for people. This is a radical reframing of reality. This hopeful outlook is further reinforced by the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He lived in a time of immense struggle, facing powerful enemies who sought to extinguish his message. Yet, his vision was always fixed on the ultimate triumph of truth. He assured his followers, "There will never cease to be a group from my ummah, my community, manifest upon the truth, unharmed by those who oppose them, until the command of Allah comes." This isn't a promise of an easy path, but it is a guarantee of endurance. It teaches that no matter how dark things seem, a beacon of truth and justice will always remain, preserved by divine will until it prevails. Sunni Islamic scholars throughout history, from the past to the present day, have built upon this foundation of hope. They have taught that history is not a random series of events spiraling into chaos, but a process with a divine purpose. The struggles and tribulations are tests, but the final outcome for humanity on this earth is not meant to be one of utter destruction or despair. Instead, it is a future where righteousness is destined to be established. This is a vision that empowers believers to work for positive change, confident that their efforts, if sincere and beneficial, are part of a larger, victorious plan for humanity. The Islamic vision for the future, therefore, is the complete opposite of the apocalyptic despair found in capitalist narratives. Where one sees only collapse, the other sees renewal. Where one predicts the permanent victory of tyranny and surveillance, the other promises the ultimate triumph of justice and equity. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prophesied that a time would come when the world, after being filled with injustice, would be filled with fairness and peace. This is not the end of the world in a cataclysm of fire and ruin, but a restoration of balance, a golden age of justice for all of humanity before the final chapter of existence. This hopeful eschatology fundamentally changes one's perspective. It transforms a person from a passive spectator of doom into an active participant in building a better world. If you believe that goodness is destined to prevail, then every act of kindness, every stand for justice, and every effort to help others is not just a futile gesture against an overwhelming tide of darkness. Instead, it is a seed being planted in fertile ground, a building block for that promised future. It gives meaning and purpose to the struggle for good, assuring people that their work matters and will ultimately bear fruit, no matter the immediate obstacles. This is a universal message of hope, not one confined to a single group. The Quranic principle that what is beneficial to mankind remains on the earth is a promise for all people. The benefit is not defined by creed or color, but by its genuine utility and goodness for humanity. This perspective encourages building bridges, fostering communities, and working for a common good, because that is what is real and lasting. It is a direct challenge to the cynical, self-destructive worldview that pits everyone against each other in a desperate fight for survival, as seen in the dystopian fantasies of Orwell. In the end, we are presented with two starkly different paths. One is the path of global capitalism's cultural imagination, a dark road leading to a future of crisis, control, and collapse, a story of humanity's failure. The other is the path illuminated by Islamic teachings, a road that leads toward a horizon of hope, justice, and the enduring victory of all that is good and beneficial. It is a vision that tells us that the foam of falsehood will inevitably vanish and the pure water of truth will remain to nourish the earth and all of its inhabitants. The choice of which future to believe in and to work for is ours.